They say the best revenge is living well. I disagree. The best revenge is watching your billionaire husband try to pay for a cup of coffee, only for his black card to get declined. You see, divorce is messy. Lawyers, courts, settlements, it gets you half. I didn't want half. I wanted it all. I wanted to leave him with nothing but his ego. My name is Elena, and this is how I stole an empire from under the nose of the Wolf of Wall Street, without breaking a single law. The champagne in my hand was room temperature, which was a crime in Manhattan high society, but it was nowhere near as criminal as the conversation I was currently forced to endure. It's all about leverage, gentlemen. Leverage and liquidity, Sebastian's voice boomed, cutting through the ambient jazz and the chatter of New York's elite. He swirled his scotch, flashing that $1,000,000 smile, the one that had graced the cover of Forbes last month. And then there was me. I stood slightly behind his left shoulder, perfectly positioned in the lighting to catch the sparkle of the 5-carat diamond choker around my neck. That was my job. I wasn't a partner. I wasn't a confidant. I was a prop. I was the hood ornament on the luxury vehicle that was Sebastian's life. "Isn't that right, darling?" Sebastian turned to me, his eyes gleaming with that faux affection he turned on whenever cameras were nearby. I blinked, widening my eyes just enough to look vacant but pretty. The deer in the headlights look, it was my signature move. "Oh, Sebastian," I giggled, letting my voice pitch up an octave. "You know, I think liquidity is just something that happens when the ice melts in my vodka tonic." The men erupted in laughter. It was a condescending, patronizing sound that grated on my nerves like sandpaper. "God, I love her," Sebastian chuckled, wrapping a heavy arm around my waist and squeezing a little too tight. "She keeps me grounded. No head for numbers, but she sure knows how to spend them. Right, babe?" "Guilty," I chirped, raising my glass. Inside my head, however, the monologue was very different. "Actually, Sebastian, liquidity refers to the ease with which an asset, or security, can be converted into ready cash without affecting its market price. And judging by the quarterly reports I swiped from your briefcase while you were passed out last Tuesday, your liquidity is currently sitting in a volatile position because you over-leveraged the Asian tech merger." But I didn't say that. I just smiled. The dumb trophy wife. It was the greatest role of my life, and tonight it was about to become my weapon. We were at the Vanguard Gala at the Met Museum. The room smelled of expensive perfume, old money, and desperation. Waiters glided by with trays of caviar that cost more than a Honda Civic. This was Sebastian's playground. He thrived here. He loved the attention, the envy in other men's eyes when they looked at his portfolio, and the lust in their eyes when they looked at his wife. "Honey, why don't you go grab another drink with the girls?" Sebastian whispered in my ear, his breath smelling of aged scotch and arrogance. "The boys and I need to talk shop. Boring stuff. You'd hate it." Translation, "Get lost, Elena. The adults are talking." "Okay, sweetie. Don't work too hard," I said, planting a soft kiss on his cheek. I turned and walked away, my heels clicking rhythmically on the marble floor. I swayed my hips just enough to keep eyes on me, ensuring Sebastian was distracted by his own pride of ownership. I navigated through the crowd, nodding at the plastic surgery disasters that passed for society ladies in this zip code. "Elena, love the dress. Is it vintage?" One of them squawked. "Custom Versace," I lied smoothly. It was off the rack, but nobody here knew the difference if you wore it with confidence. I didn't head to the bar. I headed straight for the powder room. But instead of going in, I slipped down the adjacent service corridor. I knew the layout of the Met better than the curators. Why? Because I'd spent the last 6 months studying blueprints of every venue Sebastian frequented. I pulled out my phone, a burner, not the iPhone Sebastian tracked via Find My Friends, and popped in an earbud. 3 weeks ago, I had sewn a tiny, high-fidelity listening device into the lining of Sebastian's tuxedo jacket. It was smaller than a dime, hidden right behind the lapel. He thought he was wearing Armani. He was actually wearing a wire. I leaned against the cold wall of the corridor, closed my eyes, and tapped the screen. The audio feed crackled to life. "She has no clue, Mike, not a single clue." Sebastian's voice came through crystal clear. "You sure, bastard?" That was Mike, his CFO and chief lackey. "Prenups can be tricky. If she lawyers up, laugh." Sebastian laughed, a cruel, ugly sound. "Elena, please. The woman thinks the Cayman Islands is just a vacation spot. She doesn't know about the shell companies, she doesn't know about the crypto holdings, and she definitely doesn't know about the divorce filings sitting in my safe." My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew he was cheating. I'd known about his Mistress, a 24-year-old Instagram model named Kiki, for months. But the divorce filing? That was new. "So what's the timeline?" Mike asked. "Next Friday," Sebastian said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I'm moving the last of the liquid assets to the Dubai account tonight. Once that transfer clears, on paper, I'm broke. My net worth will look like zero. When I serve her the papers, she'll get half of nothing. No alimony, no settlement, just her designer shoes and the door." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Not fear, rage. He wasn't just planning to leave me, he was planning to destroy me. He wanted to throw me out on the street after 5 years of marriage, 5 years of putting up with his temper, his gaslighting, and his infidelity, with absolutely nothing. He wanted to pull a short squeeze on his own marriage. "That's cold, man, even for you." Mike laughed nervously. "It's business, Mike. She's a depreciating asset. Time to cut my losses." I pulled the earbud out. The silence in the hallway felt heavy. A depreciating asset. I looked at my reflection in the dark window of the corridor. I didn't see a victim. I didn't see a crying wife. I saw a shark. Sebastian had made one fatal miscalculation. He assumed that because I liked shiny things, my brain was smooth. He forgot that before I was Mrs. Sebastian Sterling, I was Elena Vance, the girl who put herself through college by counting cards in Atlantic City underground poker games. I understood odds, I understood bluffs, and most importantly, I understood theft. He was moving the money to Dubai tonight. He thought he was being slick, but he didn't know that I had cloned his phone's biometric data while he was sleeping off a hangover in the Hamptons last weekend. I checked my watch, 9:15 p.m. The banks in Dubai open in 4 hours. I didn't need a lawyer. Lawyers take months and they play by the rules. I didn't have months, and I certainly didn't care about the rules anymore. I walked back into the party, a fresh glass of champagne in my hand. I spotted Sebastian across the room, still holding court, looking like the king of the world. He caught my eye and winked. I winked back. "Enjoy the champagne, darling," I thought, taking a slow sip, "because by tomorrow morning, you won't even be able to afford the bubbles." I needed to get out of that ballroom. The air suddenly felt too thin, recycled through the lungs of too many liars. I walked back to the group of men, putting on my best damsel-in-distress face. I touched my temple delicately, wincing just enough for Sebastian to notice, but not enough to cause a scene. "Sebastian, honey," I whispered, leaning into him. "I think the flashing lights triggered a migraine. It's blinding." He looked at me with a flicker of annoyance. To him, a migraine meant I couldn't be a charming hostess. It meant I was malfunctioning. "Seriously, Elena, now?" he hissed, keeping his voice low so his admirers wouldn't hear. "I'm so sorry," I pouted. "I just need 20 minutes in the car, silence and darkness, then I'll be back to sparkle. I promise." He checked his Rolex, a Patek Philippe that cost more than my parents' house. "Fine. Take the keys to the Maybach. Tell the driver to take a walk. I don't want him listening to you whine." "You're the best," I said, suppressing the urge to stab him with a cocktail stick. I grabbed the keys and glided out of the hall. I didn't run. Guilty people run. Confident women stroll. I nodded at security, walked down the grand steps of the Met, and found our matte black Maybach parked in the VIP zone. I unlocked it, slid into the back seat, and locked the doors. The moment the heavy door thudded shut, the sound of the city vanished. It was just me, the smell of Italian leather, and the ghost of the marriage I was about to execute. "Okay, Sebastian," I muttered, dropping the act. I reached into my clutch, not for lipstick, but for a small velvet pouch. Inside was a thin, translucent piece of silicone. 2 months ago, while Sebastian was passed out after a business trip, which was actually a weekend in Vegas with Kiki, I had pressed his thumb onto a piece of dental molding clay. I told myself I was crazy then. Now, looking at the synthetic fingerprint in my hand, I knew I was a genius. I pulled out the burner tablet I had kept hidden under the spare tire compartment in the trunk. I had retrieved it on my way in. I booted it up. Step 1, remote access. I wasn't hacking the bank directly. That's how you get caught by the FBI. I was hacking Sebastian. I opened a mirroring app. See, Sebastian is arrogant. He thinks his phone is secure because it has Face ID, but he doesn't know that his phone backs up to a private cloud server every night at 9 p.m., and I had the password to that cloud. Why? Because he used the name of his first dog, plus his birth year. Pathetic. Connecting, the screen blinked. Ping. I was in. I was viewing his phone's interface on my tablet. He was inside the party, phone in his pocket, completely unaware that his digital life was open in my lap. I navigated to his secure folder. It asked for a fingerprint. I placed the silicone mold over the scanner of a separate Bluetooth reader I'd linked to the system. Processing. My breath hitched. A cop car siren wailed in the distance, and for a second I froze. Paranoia is a side effect of corporate espionage. Access granted. I exhaled, my hands shaking slightly, not from fear, from adrenaline. I opened the Cayman Islands banking app. The interface loaded, displaying a number that would make most people pass out. Available balance, $142,500,000.00. And there it was, a pending transfer scheduled for midnight. Recipient, Al Saeed Holdings, Dubai. Status, awaiting final authorization. Not today, Satan, I whispered. I tapped cancel transfer. A notification popped up. Are you sure? Yes, I'm damn sure. Transfer canceled. Now the fun part. I didn't want to just move the money to my account. That's too easy to trace. I needed to wash it. I needed to make it disappear into a labyrinth so complex that even the IRS would get a headache looking at it. I opened a preset command I had written weeks ago. It was a script designed to split the funds into 40 different shell companies registered in countries that don't like answering questions from American lawyers: Panama, Belize, the Seychelles. I entered the new routing numbers. Transfer amount? All available funds. My finger hovered over the execute button. Suddenly, the car window tapped. Tap, tap, tap. I jumped, nearly dropping the tablet. It was Sebastian's driver, frantic. I cracked the window an inch. Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Sterling is texting me. He wants to know why the car GPS is active. He's asking if you left. My heart stopped. Sebastian received a notification that the car was unlocked. He was watching. Tell him I'm just adjusting the AC, Gary. And Gary, go get yourself a coffee. Take 10 minutes. On me. I slipped a $100 bill through the crack. Gary's eyes lit up. Yes, ma'am. He walked away. I looked back at the screen. I had maybe 2 minutes before Sebastian got suspicious and checked his bank alerts. I pressed execute. The screen turned into a loading circle. 20%, 45%, Come on, 80%. My phone buzzed. A text from Sebastian. Husband, stop playing games. Get back in here, now. He sensed something. Instinct. 99%. Transaction successful. New balance? 0. I stared at the 0. It was the most beautiful circle I had ever seen. The money was gone. It was currently bouncing through servers in Estonia and Singapore, eventually landing in an account that only I had the keys to. I quickly shut down the tablet, wiped it with a microfiber cloth, and shoved it back into the hidden compartment. I tore the silicone fingerprint into tiny pieces and dropped them into my half-empty latte cup from earlier. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My cheeks were flushed, my eyes bright. I looked like I'd just had a tryst, not committed grand larceny. I reapplied my red lipstick, ruby woo, appropriate for a crime scene. I stepped out of the car, smoothed my dress, and texted Sebastian back. Me. Coming, darling, just needed to powder my nose. I walked back up the museum steps. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was $142 million richer, and Sebastian Sterling was a walking corpse. He just didn't know he was dead yet. Time for the main event. I slid back into my seat next to Sebastian just as the main course was being cleared. The table was a battlefield of crystal glasses and half-eaten filet mignon. Sebastian didn't even look at me. He was too busy charming a senator from Connecticut, probably trying to get a regulatory loophole approved for his next scam. "You're back," he muttered, taking a sip of his scotch. "You missed the auction. I bought the vintage Porsche." "Did you?" I smiled, unfolding my napkin. "That's lovely, darling. Where will you park it? We're running out of garage space." Or we would be, I thought, if you still owned the garage. "Don't worry about it," he snapped. He turned his attention back to the table. "Gentlemen, tonight is a night for celebration. The merger is happening, the market is hot, and frankly, I feel invincible." He raised his hand, snapping his fingers at the sommelier. The poor man rushed over, looking terrified. "Bring us the Chateau Petrus," he announced, his voice booming. "The 1989, 2 bottles, and bring a round of Louis XIII cognac for the table." The table gasped. That order was easily $50,000. The senator looked impressed. The business partners looked jealous. This was Sebastian's favorite game, financial shock and awe. "Excellent choice, Mr. Sterling," the sommelier said, bowing slightly. "However, for orders over 10,000, company policy requires us to run the card up front, just a formality." Sebastian rolled his eyes, letting out a dramatic sigh. Bureaucracy, it's a disease. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the card, the American Express Centurion, the black card. It was made of anodized titanium, heavy and cold. It was the ultimate symbol of, "I can buy you and your entire family." He tossed it onto the silver tray like it was a piece of trash. "Run it, and add a 20% tip so you don't have to ask me again." The sommelier nodded and inserted the card into the portable terminal he was holding. I took a sip of water, my heart beating a slow, steady rhythm against my ribs. Thump, thump, thump. The machine hummed. The little circle on the screen spun, processing. The table was silent, watching the ritual. This was part of the show, watching the wolf eat. Beep, beep. A harsh, dissonant sound cut through the chatter. The sommelier frowned. He pulled the card out, wiped the chip on his sleeve, and inserted it again. "Apologies, sir. Probably a connection error." Sebastian chuckled, looking at the senator. "Technology, right? Can put a man on the moon, but can't process a simple dinner tab." The machine spun again. Beep, beep. Red light. The sommelier's face went pale. He leaned down, whispering discreetly, but in a quiet room, a whisper is a scream. "Mr. Sterling, the card has been declined." Sebastian froze. The smile didn't leave his face instantly, it just curdled, turning into something confused and ugly. "Declined?" He laughed, but it sounded dry. "Don't be ridiculous. That card has no limit. Try it again." "I have tried twice, sir. The code is insufficient funds or frozen asset. Perhaps you have another card." The air in the room changed instantly. The admiration in the senator's eyes turned to suspicion. The business partners exchanged awkward glances. In this world, being broke was worse than being a murderer. "I don't need another card," he hissed, his voice rising. "I am Sebastian Sterling. There are millions in that account. Your machine is broken." He snatched the card back and threw a platinum visa at the man. "Use this one, and I'm speaking to your manager about this embarrassment." I watched, fascinated. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. The sommelier took the visa, inserted it. Processing. Beep beep. Declined. Sebastian stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "What the hell is going on?" "Sebastian, honey," I said, keeping my voice soft and concerned, "maybe the bank flagged it as fraud since you're spending so much." "It's not fraud," he barked at me, sweat beading on his forehead. He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the private banker. This is incompetent." He unlocked his phone and tapped his banking app. I saw his thumb hover over the icon. 3, 2, 1. He opened the app. I couldn't see the screen, but I saw his face. The color drained from his skin so fast it looked like he'd been shot. His eyes bulged, his mouth opened, but no sound came out. He was staring at the 0.00. He swiped frantically, checking the savings, 0.00, checking the investment portfolio, 0.00, checking the offshore link, error, account not found. "No," he whispered. It was a small, broken sound. No, this is a glitch. This is a hack." "Is everything all right, Sterling?" the senator asked, his voice cold now. "Do we need to cover the bill?" That was the ultimate insult, asking a billionaire if he needed charity. Sebastian looked up. He looked wild. He looked at the sommelier, then at the senator, and finally, he looked at me. For a second, just a split second, he saw it. He saw the calmness in my eyes. He saw that I wasn't panicked. He saw the faint, razor-sharp smirk playing on my lips. "You," he breathed. I stood up, smoothing my silk dress. I picked up my clutch. "Sebastian, you look unwell," I said, loud enough for the whole table to hear. "I think the stress is getting to you. I'll call the car." "Oh, wait," I paused, feigning realization. "Gary left, didn't he? And if the cards are down, I guess we're taking an Uber." I turned to the sommelier. "Cancel the wine. My husband seems to have overextended himself." I walked away. I didn't look back, but I could hear the chaos erupting behind me. The shouting, the accusations, the shattering of a glass. The Wolf of Wall Street had just lost his teeth, and I was the one holding the pliers. The penthouse was quiet. It was that expensive kind of quiet you only get on the 80th floor, far above the sirens and the grime of the city. I kicked off my heels near the foyer, $1,200 Louboutins that pinched my toes, and walked barefoot across the heated marble floors. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't run. Running makes you look guilty. Staying makes you look like you own the place. And as of 9:45 p.m., I technically did. I poured myself a glass of water and stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The city lights twinkled like diamonds. It was beautiful. It was mine. 20 minutes later, the elevator dinged. It wasn't the polite ding of a guest arriving. It was followed by the sound of a fist pounding against the keypad, then the heavy oak door swinging open with enough force to crack the plaster. Sebastian stormed in. He looked like a wreck. His tie was undone, his hair was wild, and his face was a shade of purple I'd never seen before. He had clearly run out of patience waiting for an Uber and probably sprinted the last 3 blocks. "You!" he screamed, his voice cracking. "What did you do? What did you do?" He charged at me. For a second, I thought he might hit me, but he stopped 3 feet away, chest heaving, hands clenched into fists. He was shaking. I took a slow sip of water. "Hello, Sebastian. How was the rest of the dinner? Did you try the dessert? I heard the tart is to die for." "Cut the crap, Elena!" He pulled his phone out and shoved it in my face. The screen was still frozen on the banking error. "Where is it? Where is my money? I swear to God if you don't reverse whatever little trick you pulled." "Or what?" I interrupted, my voice calm and bored. "You'll sue me? With what money for a lawyer? You'll call the police and tell them what? That your wife stole the illegal funds you were hiding from the IRS?" He froze. His mouth snapped shut. "Oh, did you think I didn't know?" I walked over to the coffee table and picked up a manila folder I had placed there earlier. I tossed it at his feet. It slid across the floor and opened, revealing photos. Photos of him meeting with questionable bankers in Switzerland, photos of him leaving a hotel room with Kiki, and a copy of the divorce papers he had drafted himself. I know about the shell companies in Panama. I know about the crypto wallets. I know you were planning to serve me divorce papers next Friday and leave me with nothing. A depreciating asset, wasn't that the term? Sebastian stared at the photos. The arrogance was evaporating, replaced by pure, unadulterated fear. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. You hacked me? You? You can barely figure out the thermostat?" I laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "I have a master's in mathematics, Sebastian. I played dumb because it stroked your ego, and God, your ego is so big, it was the perfect hiding spot." He ran his hand through his hair, pacing frantically. Okay, look, you made your point. You're smart. Congratulations. Now give it back. We can talk about a settlement. I'll give you 10 million, cash. Just unlock the accounts." 10 million? I raised an eyebrow. "That's cute. But I already have, well, everything." "You can't keep it," he shouted. "They'll track it. The feds will be here in an hour." "No, they won't," I said, checking my nails. "Because I didn't steal it, Sebastian. I invested it." "What?" "I used your own power of attorney, which you signed 3 years ago when you were too drunk to read the fine print, to move the assets into a blind trust. The beneficiary of that trust? A charity foundation for distressed spouses. I run the board. It's all perfectly legal, or at least legal enough that it will take years to untangle in court." I leaned in close, smelling the fear on him. "And here is the best part. If you try to claim that money was yours, you have to admit where it came from. You have to admit to the fraud, the insider trading, the tax evasion. If you call the police on me, you go to federal prison for 20 years. If you keep your mouth shut, you're just broke." Sebastian sank onto the white leather sofa. He looked small, defeated. The wolf had walked into a bear trap. "Why?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Why do this? I gave you a life." You gave me a cage, and then you tried to throw me away when you got bored. I didn't want half, Sebastian. I didn't want alimony. I wanted to make sure that the next time you look at a woman, you remember the one who took you for everything you had. I walked to the door and picked up my coat. "Where are you going?" he asked, panic rising in his voice again. "To a hotel. This penthouse is in your name, and since you can't pay the maintenance fees anymore, the foreclosure notice should be arriving, Monday morning." I opened the door. "Goodbye, Sebastian. Good luck with the job hunt. I hear McDonald's is hiring. You might be overqualified for the grill, but I think you'd be great at the register. Just don't decline anyone's card." I slammed the door shut. As I waited for the elevator, I heard a scream from inside the apartment, the sound of a vase smashing against the wall. It was music to my ears. Adrenaline is a funny thing. When it's pumping, you feel like a god, but when it wears off, you feel like you've been hit by a freight train. I checked into the St. Regis under my maiden name, Vance. I paid cash for a week in a junior suite. I didn't want a paper trail. I didn't want room service. I just wanted a door with a heavy deadbolt and a bottle of Xanax. For the first 24 hours, I stared at the door, waiting for the police to kick it down. I waited for the phone to ring. I waited for Sebastian to burst in, screaming. But there was nothing. Silence. Complete, suffocating radio silence. By day 3, the silence wasn't a relief anymore. It was terrifying. Sebastian Sterling wasn't the type to go quietly into the night. He was a narcissist. Narcissists don't accept defeat, they escalate. If he wasn't screaming, it meant he was plotting. I set up a temporary command center on the hotel desk, laptop, burner phones, and a quadruple encrypted Wi-Fi hotspot. "Time to check on the patient," I muttered, opening the hidden surveillance app. Back when we renovated the penthouse, Sebastian insisted on installing cameras everywhere. For security, he said. He didn't know I had administrative access to the server. I could see everything. I clicked on the living room feed. The penthouse looked like a war zone. The white leather sofa was slashed open. The expensive art pieces, mostly modern junk he bought to launder money, were smashed on the floor. It looked like a tornado had touched down on the 80th floor. But the room was empty. I switched to the bedroom. Empty. Kitchen. Empty. Home office. Empty. "Where are you, Sebastian?" I whispered, leaning closer to the screen. I rewound the footage to 12 hours ago. There he was. He was pacing the living room, wearing the same clothes from the gala. He looked disheveled, frantic. He was holding a glass of whiskey in one hand and his phone in the other. He wasn't calling a lawyer. I could tell by his body language. He was hunched over, nodding rapidly, looking terrified. He was pleading. I cranked the volume up to maximum. The audio was fuzzy, but I caught snippets. "I need more time. Just 48 hours. No, don't come here. I can fix this. She has it. I'll get it out of her." My blood ran cold. She has it. I'll get it out of her. He wasn't talking to the bank. Banks don't make billionaires shake with fear. He was talking to the people he owed money to. The real money. The kind of people who don't send demand letters, they send guys with baseball bats. I watched as he hung up the phone. He stood still for a moment, staring at the wall. Then he did something that made my stomach drop. He walked over to the fireplace. He reached under the mantel, a spot I had never checked, and pulled out a small black pistol. He checked the chamber, loaded. He tucked it into his waistband, grabbed a duffel bag, and walked out the front door. The feed went dead. I sat back in my hotel chair, the air conditioning suddenly feeling freezing cold. I had calculated everything. I had calculated the bank transfers, the legal loopholes, the public humiliation. But Sebastian had just changed the rules. He wasn't trying to sue me anymore. He was hunting me. And he had a gun. I grabbed my phone. I needed to move. The St. Regis wasn't safe. If he hired a private investigator or if he used his old connections, he could find me. Manhattan is an island, but it's a small one when you're being hunted. I started packing my bag, my hands trembling slightly. Ping. An alert from my perimeter breach software. Someone had just tried to access my old iCloud account. Location: Soho, Manhattan. Device: unknown Android. He was looking for me, and he was getting close. I zipped up my bag. I wasn't going to run away like a scared rabbit. If Sebastian wanted a hunt, I'd give him one. But I needed backup. I needed someone who knew the streets better than Sebastian knew Wall Street. I dialed a number I hadn't used in 6 years, back from my days in Atlantic City. "Hello?" a gruff voice answered on the second ring. "Jax," I said, my voice steady. "It's Elena. I need a favor, and I'm paying double." "Elena?" the voice chuckled, dark and raspy. "I thought you married a prince and moved to a castle." The prince turned into a frog, and now the frog has a gun. "Meet me at Grand Central, Terminal 4. 30 minutes. "I'm on my way." I hung up and checked the pistol in the mirror. Not a real one, just the metaphorical gun I had pointed at Sebastian's head. "You want to play rough, darling," I thought, putting on my sunglasses. "Let's see how you handle the streets." I walked out of the hotel room. The game had just turned deadly. Grand Central Terminal at 10 p.m. is a chaotic symphony of tourists, commuters, and drifters. It smells of burnt coffee, subway exhaust, and 1,000 different colognes. Perfect. Chaos is the best camouflage. I stood near the famous brass clock in the center of the main concourse. I had ditched the Upper East Side wife look. I was wearing oversized sunglasses, a black trench coat, and a Yankees cap pulled low. I looked like a celebrity trying to hide, or a woman running from a subpoena. Both were technically true. I checked my watch. 10:02 p.m. "You're 2 minutes late, Ace," a gravelly voice said right behind my ear. I didn't flinch. I knew that voice. I turned around. Jax hadn't changed much in 6 years. He was still a mountain of a man, 6'4", with shoulders that looked like they could bust through drywall. He wore a faded leather jacket and boots that had seen more street fights than sidewalks. He had a scar running through his left eyebrow, a souvenir from a poker game gone wrong in Jersey. He looked me up and down, a smirk playing on his lips. "Nice threads. You robbing a bank or escaping one?" "Something like that," I said, my voice tight. "Let's walk. Standing still makes me nervous." We started moving toward the 42nd Street exit, blending into the flow of the crowd. Jax fell into step beside me, his eyes scanning the perimeter. He moved like a predator, relaxed but ready to snap. "So," Jax said, keeping his voice low, "I saw the news. Financial guru Sebastian Sterling under investigation for massive fraud. You're doing?" I lit the match, I admitted, but he poured the gasoline. "And now he's mad," Jax guessed. "He's not just mad, Jax. He's desperate. He owes money to people who don't take checks. He's got a gun, and he's out of his mind. He thinks if he finds me, he can force me to reverse the transfers." Jax whistled low. "A desperate suit with a piece? That's a bad combo. They panic. They squeeze the trigger when they don't mean to." We pushed through the heavy glass doors and stepped out onto the cool night air of 42nd Street. The sirens were louder out here. "I need a place to lay low, not a hotel, somewhere off the grid, somewhere he can't track." "I got a safe house in Queens, Astoria. It's a basement apartment under a laundromat. Smells like detergent and wet socks, but it's clean, no cameras, cash only." "Perfect. And I need you to stay close, Jax. I can handle numbers. I can't handle a bullet." Jax stopped walking. He turned to me, his expression serious. "I got your back, Ace. You know that. But you gotta tell me the truth. Is it just him, or did he hire pros?" I paused. That was the question, wasn't it? "I don't know," I said honestly, He was on the phone with someone, begging. Jax nodded grimly. Then we assume the worst. We assume he put a bounty on you. He raised his hand to hail a cab, yellow, anonymous, untraceable. But just as a taxi pulled over, Jax grabbed my arm. His grip was like iron. "Don't look," he hissed. "Just get in the car." "What?" My heart spiked. Across the street, the black SUV, tinted windows. It's been circling the block since we walked out. I fought the urge to turn my head. I opened the cab door and slid inside. Jax jumped in next to me and slammed the door. "Go!" Jax barked at the driver. "Queens, take the tunnel. Step on it." As the taxi peeled away from the curb, I looked into the side mirror. The black SUV pulled out of traffic, it made an illegal U-turn and started following us. My stomach dropped. "They found me," I whispered. "How did they find me?" Jax pulled a small device out of his pocket, an RF signal detector. He waved it over my bag. Nothing. He waved it over my coat. Nothing. Then he waved it over my shoes. The device beeped frantically, red lights flashing. Jax looked at me. "Your shoes, Elena. The Louboutins." "What?" "Designers are putting trackers in high-end heels now, for recovery in case of theft, or for controlling husbands to keep tabs on their wives." I stared at my feet, the beautiful red-soled shoes. Sebastian had bought them for me last week. A gift. It wasn't a gift. It was a shackle. "Take 'em off," Jax ordered, rolling down the window. I unbuckled the straps and kicked them off from me. Jax grabbed the $1,200 shoes and hurled them out the window of the moving taxi. They clattered onto the asphalt of 2nd Avenue, disappearing under the wheels of a bus. "Tracking signal lost," Jax said. I sat back, barefoot and breathing hard. We sped into the Midtown Tunnel, the orange lights flashing over us like warning signs. "Welcome back to the gutter, Ace." Jax grinned, though his eyes were cold. Now, the real game begins. The safe house lived up to its name, if your definition of safety involved mildew and the rhythmic thumping of industrial washing machines overhead. It was a windowless concrete box underneath a 24-hour laundromat on 30th Avenue. The furniture consisted of a pull-out couch that smelled like ancient dust and a folding card table. It was a long fall from the penthouse on Park Avenue. "Home sweet hellhole," Jax muttered, tossing a bag of greasy burgers onto the table. "Eat, you look like you're gonna faint, and I don't do CPR on billionaires." I sat on the rickety chair, peeling the wrapper off a cheeseburger. I hadn't eaten since breakfast. The first bite tasted like grease and survival. "Okay," I said, chewing quickly. "We're safe for now, but we can't stay here. Sebastian isn't just mad, Jax. He's terrified. I saw his face. That gun, he wasn't carrying it to scare me. He was carrying it because he's scared of someone else." Jax leaned against the concrete wall, cleaning a 9mm pistol with a rag. "So, we need to find out who holds the leash?" I pulled out my laptop. I have his cloud data, but I need to go deeper. If he owes money to people who drive black SUVs and track shoes, it's not Bank of America. I cracked my knuckles, a habit I'd picked up in the underground poker dens, and started typing. I bypassed his standard financials and went straight for the encrypted messaging apps: Signal, Telegram, Wicker. Sebastian was lazy with digital hygiene. He used the same passcode for his Wicker as he did for our home alarm system. Access granted. I scrolled through the chats. Most were boring: mistresses, drug dealers, insider trading tips. But one thread was pinned to the top. Contact name, V. The messages were short, brutal. V. Payment is late, Sterling. Sebastian. I need 24 hours. Just a liquidity issue. V. We don't do liquidity issues. We do broken kneecaps. 12 hours. Sebastian. My wife, she has access to some accounts. I can get it from her. V. If you don't have my $50 million by midnight, we take the wife instead.
Collateral. I stopped breathing. The burger turned to ash in my mouth. Jax, I whispered, look at this. Jax walked over and read the screen over my shoulder. His jaw tightened. V. Victor Volkov, the Brighton Beach butcher, runs a loan shark operation out of a consulting firm in Brooklyn. Nasty piece of work. They don't sue you, they vanish you. I realized Sebastian didn't just steal from investors. He borrowed $50 million from the Russian mob to cover his losses on the tech merger. And when the market crashed, he couldn't pay them back. I read the last message again. We take the wife instead. Collateral. That son of a bitch, Jack spat. He's not hunting you to get the money back for himself. He's hunting you to hand you over to Volkov. He's going to trade you for his life. It made perfect sense. Sebastian was a coward. He wouldn't face Volkov alone. He would serve me up on a silver platter, tell Volkov that I was the one who stole the money, and let them deal with me while he skipped town. He put a target on my back, I said, standing up. The fear was gone. It was replaced by a cold, hard clarity. We gotta run, Ace, Jack said, holstering his gun. We need to get you to Canada or Mexico. Tonight. No, I said. Jax looked like I was crazy. Elena, these guys cut fingers off for fun. You can't math your way out of this. If I run, I spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. Volkov has reach. He'll find me eventually. And Sebastian wins. He gets to play the victim. I stopped pacing and looked at the laptop screen. I looked at the $142 million sitting in my secure offshore accounts. I have something Volkov wants more than me. What? His money, plus interest. You're not thinking what you think you're thinking, Jax warned. I'm gonna buy my freedom, Jax, and I'm gonna sell Sebastian to pay for it. I sat back down at the computer. I opened a new browser window and searched for Volkov Consulting Group. I found a public number for the front desk. You're gonna call the mob? Jax asked, eyes wide. No, I said, reaching for my burner phone. I'm gonna call the wolf, and I'm gonna tell him exactly where to meet me. It's a trap, Jack said. Exactly, I smiled. But Sebastian is too desperate to see it. He thinks I'm a trophy wife, remember? He thinks I'm scared. He thinks I'm stupid. I dialed Sebastian's number. It rang once. Elena, Sebastian's voice screamed through the phone. He sounded unhinged. Where are you? I swear to God. Shut up, Sebastian, I said, my voice calm and icy. I'm done running. I have the money. I want to make a deal. There was a pause. A deal? I keep $10 million. You get the rest. Meet me at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, Pier 4, midnight. Come alone. Okay, he breathed, the relief palpable in his voice. Okay, baby. I knew you'd come to your senses. Midnight. I'll be there. I hung up and broke the SIM card in half. Jack shook his head. He's not coming alone. He's gonna bring Volkov's men. I'm counting on it, I said. Pack the bag, Jax. We're going to a meeting. You got a plan for when we're surrounded by Russians with AK-47s? I do, I said, grabbing my coat. It involves a little bit of leverage and a whole lot of liquidity. The Brooklyn Navy Yard at midnight is a graveyard of industry. Rusted cranes loom over the water like skeletal fingers, and the air smells of diesel, salt, and rot. Perfect place for a burial. Jax parked our stolen sedan behind a stack of shipping containers. He checked his clip one last time. Remember, he whispered, his eyes scanning the darkness. Don't let them separate us. If I yell drop, you hit the deck. I don't care if you're standing in a puddle of oil. Understood, I said, clutching my phone.
My thumb hovered over the banking app. This was the only weapon I had. We walked out into the open space of Pier 4. The wind whipped off the East River, biting through my trench coat. I stood under the single flickering, howling light, making myself a visible target. At 12 a.m. sharp, headlights cut through the fog. Not one car. 3. A sleek black Mercedes led the pack, flanked by 2 armored SUVs. They screeched to a halt 10 yards away, boxing us in against the water. Doors opened. Sebastian stepped out of the Mercedes. He looked like a ghost. His suit was rumpled, his eyes were bloodshot, and he was sweating despite the cold. But he wasn't the one I was looking at. From the passenger seat of the Mercedes, an older man emerged. He leaned on a cane, but he moved with dangerous grace. He wore a cashmere coat and a flat cap. Viktor Volkov. "Elena!" Sebastian shouted, stepping forward. He tried to sound authoritative, but his voice cracked. "You came. Good. Give me the phone. Transfer the funds back to the main account and we can discuss this." "Discuss what, Sebastian?" I asked, my voice amplified by the silence of the pier. "How you plan to sell me to them?" I nodded toward Volkov. Sebastian flinched. I didn't. Look, it's complicated. Just give me the money and you can walk away." "He is lying," a deep, gravelly voice interrupted. Volkov stepped forward, his cane clicking on the pavement. He ignored Sebastian completely and looked at me. "Mrs. Sterling, I have heard much about you. Your husband says you are a thief, that you stole my property." "I didn't steal it, Mr. Volkov," I said, holding his gaze. "I secured it." "Secured?" Volkov raised a gray eyebrow. "Sebastian owes you $50 million, plus $3 million in late fees. He planned to run. He was moving liquid assets to Dubai yesterday. If I hadn't intercepted that transfer, your money would be in a non-extradition zone right now, and Sebastian would be sipping mojitos on a beach while you hunted me for a debt I didn't create." Sebastian's face went white. "She's lying. She's crazy. Victor, shoot her. Just take the phone." Jack stepped in front of me, hand on his holster. The 4 Russian guards raised their submachine guns instantly. "Easy," Volkov said, raising a hand. The guards lowered their weapons slightly. Volkov looked at Sebastian with disgust. "You were going to Dubai, Mr. Sterling?" No, I swear. I was protecting the asset." "He's lying," I said. "Check his pocket. He has a one-way ticket booked on Emirates Flight 203 for tomorrow morning. I saw the confirmation in his email." Volkov gestured to one of his guards. The guard grabbed Sebastian, slammed him against the car hood, and patted him down. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his inside pocket. He handed it to Volkov. Volkov put on a pair of reading glasses, looked at the paper, and then looked at Sebastian. The look was one of pure pity. "Dubai," Volkov muttered. "First class." "Victor, please," Sebastian begged, tears streaming down his face. "I can explain. I was going to pay you. I just needed time." Volkov turned back to me. "So, Mrs. Sterling, you have my money. Why are you here? Why not run?" "Because I'm a businesswoman, Mr. Volkov." I stepped out from behind Jack's. "I don't like loose ends, and I don't like being hunted." I held up my phone. "I have $142 million in a secure trust. I am prepared to transfer $53 million to your crypto wallet right now. The debt is paid, the books are clear." "And in exchange?" Volkov asked. "In exchange, I walk away, my friend walks away, and you forget you ever heard the name Elena Vance." "And what about him?" Volkov pointed his cane at him. I looked at my husband, the man who vowed to love and cherish me, the man who tried to destroy me. "He's all yours," I said cold. "Consider him the interest." Sebastian screamed, "Elena, no, you can't. We're married. I love you." "Transaction initiating." I tapped the screen. "Processing." The longest 5 seconds of my life passed. The wind howled, Sebastian sobbed, Jax kept his hand on his gun. Bing. Volkov's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, checked the screen, and a slow smile spread across his face. Received, Volkov said. A pleasure doing business with you, Elena. The pleasure was mine, I said. Volkov turned to his men. Put Mr. Sterling in the trunk. We have a long drive to the Pine Barrens. He has much work to do to pay off the emotional distress he caused me. No, no, Elena, Sebastian shrieked as two guards dragged him toward the SUV. He kicked and flailed, his expensive Italian loafers scraping uselessly against the concrete. I didn't look away. I watched as they threw him into the back of the black SUV. The door slammed shut, cutting off his screams. Volkov tipped his cap to me. Drive safe, Mrs. Sterling. The convoy turned around and sped off into the night, taking the Wolf of Wall Street with them. Silence returned to the pier. Jax let out a long breath and holstered his gun. Remind me never to piss you off, Ace. That was cold. I looked at the empty spot where Sebastian had been standing. He wanted a trophy wife, Jax? He just forgot that trophies are made of metal, and metal is hard. I got into the car. Where to? Jax asked, starting the engine. The airport. I hear Paris is lovely this time of year, and I have about $90 million left to spend.
The morning sun over Paris hits differently than it does in New York. In New York, the sun feels like a spotlight, demanding you to perform. In Paris, it feels like a warm embrace, inviting you to just be. I sat on the balcony of my penthouse in the 16th arrondissement, sipping a café au lait. The wrought iron railing was cold under my hand, a grounding reminder that this was real. I picked up the International Herald Tribune from the bistro table. I didn't usually read the news anymore. It felt like reading about a different planet. But today's headline caught my eye. Manhunt for disgraced financier ends. Sebastian Sterling still missing. I skimmed the article. The FBI had seized the penthouse. They had seized the cars, the boat, the Hamptons house, but they couldn't find the man. The authorities believed he had fled to a non-extradition country with millions in stolen cash. If only they knew. Sebastian wasn't on a beach in Brazil. He was paying off a debt that money couldn't cover. Whether he was scrubbing floors in Volkov's casinos in Siberia or feeding fish in the Atlantic, well, that wasn't my concern anymore. The world thought Sebastian Sterling was a mastermind who got away. I was the only one who knew he was just a bad investment that had finally been written off. Mademoiselle Vance? I turned. My assistant, a charming young Frenchman named Luc, was standing in the doorway holding a tablet. The auction house is on the line. They want to know if you are ready to bid on the Monet. I smiled. Tell them I'm ready. And Luc, tell them I'm paying cash. Of course. He nodded and disappeared. I looked back at the city. 6 months ago, I was a prop. I was a silence filler. I was a trophy on a shelf, polished only when company came over. Now, I was a ghost. A phantom with $90 million and a brand new name. I took a sip of my coffee and watched a pigeon land on the railing. It looked at me, tilting its head. Don't worry, I whispered to the bird. I won't tell anyone. I stood up, smoothing down my silk robe. I had a busy day ahead. Art to buy, wine to drink, and a life to live. They say money can't buy happiness. Maybe that's true, but it can buy freedom. And freedom is the most beautiful thing in the world. And that is the story of how I stopped being a victim and started being the villain. Or the hero, depending on which tax bracket you're in. But
enough about me. I want to know about you. I'm currently enjoying the view here in Paris, but where are you tuning in from? New York, London, or maybe a basement in Queens? Drop your city in the comments below. I love knowing where my accomplices are hiding out. And listen, if you enjoyed watching the wolf get skinned, or if you just love a happy ending with a lot of zeros, hit that like button. It costs you absolutely nothing, unlike my ex-husband's dinner bill. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. Consider it your VIP pass to the club. We have plenty more secrets to spill, and trust me, you don't want to miss the next receipt I pull out. Until then, stay sharp and keep your passwords safe.